Good morning, Vietnam!
To infinity and beyond!
I'm Ricky Bobby.
And I'm Cal Naughton Jr.
Do you know that cardboard is actually edible?
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. May God have mercy on your soul.
Go ahead. Make my day.
It is up to us, then, to be the intelligent part of your day. Well, of course, where else do you come? Hi, once again, everybody. I'm Ed Berliner. Welcome into another edition of the Free-for-All. That is right. You can't live with it. You got to have it every single day. Sit back, have a drink, wear your Hawaiian shirt, do everything, be ready, and just enjoy. By the way, if you'd like to go ahead on our live show and be part of the live show, we may let you in. It is up to me, actually, because you can text if you're watching us live on YouTube or if you're watching live on Twitter or on Facebook, because I get to see the texts as they come in, and then I get to decide whether or not we want to use them. So be intelligent, which in this day and age is a little bit difficult for some people. We realize that. That's why it's all intelligent discussion. Let's go ahead and get started. I'll welcome in my guests for today, two gentlemen whom I have known for many years. The first guy is one that people don't realize. We have been in so many places together. He and I are actually, I want to consider us the sports network killers. Because if you think about it, we started and we first met each other at Sports News Network about 1 million years ago, which was the first all-sports news network before ESPN got the idea. We gave them the idea, and we would still be on the air today if certain people hadn't screwed the pooch when it comes to all the finances. That's another story for another day in a book somewhere. We then got together for another network called News Sport in the mid-90s, which again was beautiful. It would have lasted forever had the Dolan family not gone ahead and decided they wanted to chuck it all and sell it to Fox, who then came in and fired everybody and put together the Fox Sports Network. Again, book material. But we were great. We were the best thing there was. It was fun. It was okay. It was all those wonderful things. And now, of course, he does sports at 92.9 The Game in Atlanta, Georgia. My great buddy John Fricke is here today on Free for All. Mr. Fricke.
You would have to remind me about Brian Kilmeade and the fact that once Brian left News Sport after you and I had groomed him and helped him and made him into what he became, he big-timed us, basically.
He did. He big-timed us, but then again, we have to consider when you just said what he became. Let's get past that. we keep trying to forget that as much as humanly possible. So I'll tell you, I'm going to work with your cameraman.
Yeah, well, I'm not a photographer, and
obviously.
No, wait a second. Now, I had this contraption set up, and it just went to shit. I guess I got to turn it this way.
See, and there it is. See, and that's another thing. People keep asking me. They say, "Can I curse on this show?" And I said, "Shit, no. You can't do that." So you went ahead and broke the whole thing wide open. So that's good. We'll get to that later. Perfect. All right. You're much well said. Leave it there. My next guest is a gentleman whom I have known many years, and he is, when I say that he's a legend in radio programming, it's true. He'll probably be the guy to say, don't keep using that word from me. But from WIOD in Miami, KNX in Los Angeles, iHeartRadio, Odyssey. So if there's any bodies to be buried in radio, he knows where they are. And as a matter of fact, I have this feeling that he probably knows where a lot of bodies of friends I know that are buried that are no longer working in the business, who quite frankly shouldn't have been working in the business anyway. There's all kinds of stupid stories that we can tell on this, and we may get to them. Ken Charles joins us here on Free for All today, live, ladies and gentlemen, from Los Angeles, California. How you doing, Ken?
I'm doing great. Thanks for being here. Yeah, please stop using that word legend, because there are probably people who are hoping one of the bodies to be buried is mine.
But if you're a member of management, they always want you to be the guy who gets buried. Come on, you and I know that. That's what happens. I mean, I was management as part of a couple of these places. But don't worry about it, Ken. Nobody here is going to call for your head. I think.
Well, you hope.
I hope, of course. But
We're
if
only
they
we're only 60 seconds into this, so let's see.
let's see what happens, because we got a long way to go and a short time to get there. All right, there you go. Set the stage, ladies and gentlemen. You know what time it is.
All right, Barry, it's showtime.
It's showtime, Phil.
It's showtime, baby.
It's showtime, baby.
It's showtime, folks.
Come on, Bubba, it's showtime.
Showtime, bitch. Showtime.
Hey, Ringo, showtime.
Okay, Trey, showtime.
Showtime, Trail.
Showtime.
Showtime! Showtime!
Showtime.
Don't say it. Please, don't say it.
No, I have to say it, Mitch. Showtime.
That's right. It is showtime. It's time to get going. So, gentlemen, let's go ahead and begin, as we always do on the show, where I try to get us all started with something that is sitting on my craw, if you will. And we'll go ahead, and you gentlemen will have a chance to talk about it later, what you're thinking about as well. But let's start right here, because this has been sitting with me for quite some time. Everybody, of course, we are still stuck in the COVID-19 pandemic. Some people say it's over. It's not. It's getting a lot worse than it ever was before. And now we are down to what is considered to be the mandates. Because people are wondering, well, you can't force me to get a vaccination. You can't force me to get vaccinated before I come to work. And a lot of places are saying now, no, you have to. And this has started with hospitals, where they are telling the people, the healthcare workers, that you've got to have the vaccination before you are sitting here dealing with patients, which would seem to be, if you think about it, that would seem to be absolutely logically filled with common sense. But some people are not going for it at all. They're saying, no, you still can't. The Pentagon has now decided, and this got into my stick a long time ago. As a member of a military family, I said, if you're a member of the military and you're protecting the United States, then damn it, you better get vaccinated, because that's part of your job. Now the Pentagon is saying it's time to own up. You either get vaxxed or you can sit on the streets.
You can consider this memo today as what we would call in the military a warning order.
The Pentagon on Monday said that it will seek U.S. President Joe Biden's approval by mid-September to require 1.3 million military members to get vaccinated against COVID-19, anticipating full regulatory clearance for a vaccine by then. After setting COVID-19 rules for federal workers, Biden last month directed the Pentagon to look into how and when it will require members of the military to take the vaccine. Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby called Monday's memo issued by Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin a warning order.
This is coming, and we want you to be ready for it as well. And obviously, we prefer that that you get the vaccine now and not wait for the mandate.
The Defense Department is targeting mid-September for a vaccination deadline based on expectations for the Food and Drug Administration to give full approval to the Pfizer vaccine. Currently, it falls under an emergency use authorization. The deadline could be moved up if the FDA approves the vaccine earlier, the secretary said in the memo. Austin said that he could act even sooner or recommend a different course if the situation worsened. The U.S. military says around half of the armed forces have had their shots. Rates are highest in the Navy, which suffered from a high-profile outbreak last year aboard an aircraft carrier. Biden threw his support behind the move, saying the Delta variant is spreading rapidly through unvaccinated populations, adding, quote, "We are still on a wartime footing, and every American who is eligible should take immediate steps to get vaccinated right away."
Gentlemen, let's put this flat out as far as I'm concerned. If you're in the military and if you don't want to get vaccinated, fine. Dishonorable discharge and your pension goes right out the window. I've had it. And frankly, with the number of people that I've lost to COVID and the people that I have in my circle who are ill to this day, some of them who will never recover properly, thanks to those who don't give a shit, and frankly, just go ahead and throw caution to the wind in this country. If you don't want to get vaccinated, fine. But don't hurt me, don't hurt anybody else. You're here to serve and protect as far as I'm concerned. So start serving and start protecting and get the damn vaccination. John Fricke, I'm going to go ahead and begin with you, my friend.
Well, a couple of things. One is I am incredibly disappointed with the FDA. Ken, you're a news guy. Let me ask you a question here. What does it take for the FDA to go from emergency use authorization to full approval? We have 193 million people that have had at least one shot. 193 million. What more do you want? What constitutes full approval when 193 million Americans have a shot already?
I mean, if you want to know what's wrong with bureaucracy, this is your poster child for it. Because you're right, 193 million people are vaccinated. More than 50% of the country is vaccinated, what more tests, what more studies do they need to finally go, okay, this is fine, but we shouldn't stop at the military. The mandate should go long beyond the military. Workplaces are doing it. Schools need to be doing it. This is just for somebody to say they don't want to take a vaccine in a world where they've been taking vaccines their entire life. Smallpox. You can't travel to certain foreign countries, especially in the military, without certain vaccines. You can't go to school. What about tetanus vaccines? All of these vaccines people get every day, and you're telling me this is where you're going to draw the line?
And that's the biggest thing that has me fried about all this. We've taken vaccines before. It's not like all of a sudden this magical wand has come out of the sky and said, bang, we're going to give you something that you've never had before. Last time I checked, America got together 1,000,000 years ago when something called polio was still running wild across America. And we decided to go ahead and let's do the best thing for the common good. You know what the issue, though, here is right now? And I've had this discussion with Lady Shannon, who is in the medical profession. And we agreed on this. And we don't agree on everything. But as someone who sees this from the ground floor, she said, yes, that's what it is. In polio, we saw children that were afflicted. We saw people in wheelchairs. We saw people with in iron lungs. We saw people having to wear braces. We saw them dying. We don't see that here. Even though it's in front of us and we are watching people inside the hospitals dying, we see people walking around. We see children going to school. And there's idiots out there who believe, well, hey, don't worry about it. It's only 1% of the people who are afflicted. If that's your family or my family that dies for it, that's the only 1% I care about. But we don't see it hurting people every day. And Ken, I think that's the biggest issue. If there was more of it out there and people paid attention to it and we saw people dying, suffering, dropping dead in the streets, then maybe somebody would actually pay attention.
Well, except we are seeing it and it's out there. The difference between then and now is Twitter. It's the politicalization of this. All of the things that are spreading misinformation today weren't there then. People trusted the information. They knew if they got the vaccine, they were going to live. If they didn't, they're going to die. Now there's actually a debate. It's politicized, and people are making stupid decisions because they're given bad and wrong information. All of that wasn't there for polio and smallpox.
Again, this is a messaging issue. I mean, this is we were told, Ken, that you had to wear a mask. Then we were told you didn't have to wear a mask. We were told then you had to wear a mask. And, oh, by the way, if you get the vaccine, you don't have to wear a mask. Now we're being told if you get the vaccine, you may still have to wear a mask. This is so poorly done. I mean, I understand it was an emergency thing. I understand Operation Warp Speed was an emergency thing for this pandemic, and I get what they did. And look, I'll give credit to the people who, from Trump through Biden. There's credit here for distribution and making sure that this thing has gotten as ramped up as it's gotten. But the problem with this crap, frankly, is that so many people are so confused as to what is and is not real here, is that it allowed people to look at the sports world, for example. You've got quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, who's had COVID a couple of times, Kirk Cousins, who wants to put a plexiglass around his little locker room. Around, we hear these sports athletes going, I'm not going to take it, I'm not going to take it. Look, if you don't want to take the vaccine, that's a personal decision on you. The masks are a different thing to me. And here's where I fall on the masks. If I have the vaccine, I was one of the first to get it, not just because of my age, but I got it actually, because I went out there and I sought it because I wanted it, because I believe in vaccines. But that's fine if you don't. I'm not passing judgment. If you don't want to get the vaccine, okay, and you want to take your chances out there, that's fine. But if I'm not wearing a mask and I catch it, I'm asymptomatic, and I give it to you, don't come back to me and say, you know what, it says you didn't wear a mask. Nah, hell with that.
But see, there's a problem with that, John.
That's your tough luck.
There's a problem with that. When you say if you don't want to wear it and you don't want to get the vaccine, you take your chances. Bullshit. You're taking a chance with my life and the other people around me. It's if you are that isolated person, I get that. Right, but if you are a carrier, you can kill somebody.
99.9% fine. Right? I mean, 99.99999% fine. So we have to learn to live with this, Ed. I mean, we got to learn to live with this. I mean, this thing, if we don't learn to live with this, this is going to be around year after year after year after year after year.
Because don't we have to learn how to live with it safely? Go ahead.
Well, but just like the flu, it's going to be, this isn't going away. This
No,
is
it's a
not changing.
coronavirus.
And part of the problem with this damn thing is we've learned as we've gone. It's not like the flu where we know every year the flu comes, you're going to get it, you get your shot, you don't get your shot, you're probably not going to die. This thing really has been a learning pandemic from day one, and we've been watching it in real time.
I want to address that when you say it's a learning pandemic, and I agree. And John, you brought this up in your conversation a few minutes ago, where people are saying, well, the CDC told us this, now they've changed. The NIH told us this, now they've changed. Fauci has changed. Of course they do. That's why they call it the practice of medicine, and it's Mother Nature. Because from the very beginning, they took the steps that they felt was right. Okay, because I remember where they said, don't worry about it, not everybody has to wear a mask early on. And then they changed, they said, holy spit, now you got to wear a mask. And then they're saying, well, you don't have to wear a mask indoors. Well, now we think that you should wear a mask indoors. And my point is, and again, I'm not a doctor, I just play one on TV, is that the doctors and the scientists are learning as we go along what happened. And yeah, it's inconvenient for us, but we can't expect the researchers, the doctors, and the scientists to know everything the first moment out of the box.
They made gigantic. They went out and said, "No, this is the way it is. If you go get the vaccine, you don't have to wear a mask." They made a declaration, and then
but that's what they knew at the time.
Well, but that's the problem, Ed. That's exactly the issue.
But that's not a problem. That's Mother Nature.
You can't.
There was no Delta variant.
Yeah. Well, of course, they shouldn't call it a variant. By the way, notwithstanding the fact that they named it after an airlines. I guess we're going to get the brand, and the next one will be the who knows, the Qantas variant. Is that they should probably just said, because COVID-19, right, is for the year, right? Okay, so they should have just called it COVID-20, COVID-21, get us used to the idea that there's going to be COVID-22, COVID-23, COVID, every year we're going to have a COVID.
Well, but it's not a different coronavirus. That's why they didn't change the name. It is a variant of COVID-19, and it's more contagious. It's why now they're talking about this Lambda variant that came from Colombia, started to spread in South Florida, and now is growing through the Southwest. This thing's going to continue to evolve. I mean, at the end of the day, the one thing we know is viruses want to live, and this wants to live. And so every time we do something, the military is a great example. This is war, because every time we take a step, we put on a mask, this thing is going to evolve. And as it evolves, it's why things have changed. And you're right, the messaging has been terrible, but some of it is just kind of part of learning as we go, because this thing is changing as we go.
What could they have done, though, when you say, and again, I'm going to open that up, when you say, and John said it, you said it, that the messaging was terrible. I've gone back and looked at a lot of these press conferences over the last year. What were they supposed to say? Because every time I looked at when Fauci said something, when the CDC said something, when the analysts said something, they were dealing with the information and the intelligence that they had at that moment. But because most of America didn't pay attention, didn't want to get vaccinated, didn't want to wear a mask, wanted to go to mass events, everything changed. So it's, again, part of the human element that got involved in this and has changed everything. So they've got to change, and they've got to change the rules. So, you know something, John? I don't hold it against anybody for saying that, wait a minute, we made a mistake. Well, no, not really. We didn't make a mistake. It's just based on medicine, because we have to go with what Mother Nature gives us. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, well, Ken's right. I mean, you weigh this against the politics of the whole thing, and it just gets to be muddled, and it's a mess, and that's what it is. I want to go back to your original point, though, if I can, about the military. I have no problem. Here's where you and I are going to disagree. I don't think it should be a dishonorable discharge. You're asking somebody to take an experimental vaccine. It's still experimental. I think an honorable discharge is fine.
I don't think it's experimental anymore. You can't say that because it actually works.
You can, because it's not been fully approved by the FDA.
Well, but that's the FDA's issue right now. And again, you brought up the point about the FDA, and the FDA has dragged their feet on this. The FDA is slower than molasses.
Ed, if I take it to court, I win. Okay, because right. So, but I agree. Look, if I were for Odyssey. If Odyssey has said that I have to be vaccinated to go into the studio again, of course I am, and anybody that wants to be vaccinated could go into the studio. If a company says that you have to get this vaccine in order to work for them, I don't think that that's necessarily grounds for any kind of contentious issue here. You have the freedom of choice not to work for that company, or not to work for the military.
Exactly.
Or not to go to a school. Hell, you can do online schools all over the place. You go to University of Phoenix, you want, I mean, it doesn't matter. So I have no problem with the free market or even the government demanding that you take a vaccine to the degree that, it's not imposed in a mandate by the government that you must in order to. I mean, if it's part of travel, if it's part of, an agreement that you enter into with a school, with a company, with a private entity, with the government, that's fine. To mandate it as a general blanket rule, no.
Well, see, but that's, again, part of the problem when we're coming down to government, because here in the state of Florida, we are run by the man who put the duh in DeSantis, and the duh in Florida, Ron DeSantis, who has decided that you can't have mandates and you can't stop teachers. Matter of fact, you cannot make teachers and students wear masks when they go to school. I'm a parent. Bullshit. I mean, I want my kid protected. I want him or her in a mask. I want the teachers wearing a mask. And I have no problem whatsoever. Now, the superintendent of schools in Tallahassee, Florida, has come out and said, we are going to make our teachers and our students wear masks. Now, if you as a parent come in and give us a medical reason why your child cannot wear one, we will then allow that. But we are not going to allow political and religious reasons for not wearing it, because God forbid we have a kid who dies under my watch. See,
hey, let me
that's
ask you a question.
the case right there. And you've got the government in here saying, of all people, Republicans in here saying that, let it ride, baby. No.
Well, as experiments go, state-by-state experiments, that's something to be said for that. I mean, there's something to be said with whether or not you agree with how one state does it versus another in order for us to try to figure out how this works best. But, Ken, let me ask you a question about the legal aspect of this, because I think that brings up a really interesting point here. The legal aspect is that, how does it require the Supreme Court under the 10th Amendment to make a determination about statewide public health? Do they have to come out? Do the Supremes have to come out and make a declaration as it regards this and the 10th Amendment?
They don't, but they're going to have to, because it's going to court. It's going to court, both from a worker standpoint, from a school standpoint, it's going to go to court, so they will. But let's go back to, where we got off on this. We're talking about the messaging. Part of the reason the messaging was bad because of the pressure from businesses and local people to open up early, to change mask mandates early, to get us out and get things back to normal early. All of those things led to everybody going back and forth, and some states starting and some states doing this. All of it led to confusion when the federal government should adjust from the start. And I don't blame, by the way, I do not blame this on Trump, because I don't think Biden has done a great job with it either. But from the start, had Trump just said, here's the deal, federal mask mandate, you're going to do this, and it was a consistent message, like in other countries, we would be in a different situation.
Well, I do blame Trump, because he's the guy who came out and said, don't wear the mask. It's not a big deal. He even showed up at the press conferences and didn't wear a mask, and he's the guy in charge with the biggest bully pulpit. Absolutely, I blame him.
Listen, I'm not going to defend him, but what I'm telling you, though, is when you give the rights to the states and you have 50 different states making 50 different decisions, and then the states give the right to their counties and their cities, you're going to get the most fakakta, crazy, mixed up messaging you ever want to see, and that's why we're in this situation.
You get major points of bringing the word fakakta into the conversation, as a matter of fact. I want to congratulate you. That was awesome.
Listen, that's my new word.
But you're also then bringing in the political side of this, because Trump, as the Republican, who decided to say that absolutely not, we're going to do this for freedom, 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 freedom. I love that word, freedom. Everybody talks about freedom, which is absolute horse crap in a lot of ways. And sometimes we have too many freedoms, but that's another discussion, which quite frankly will start an all-out war. But he's the guy who said, don't wear them. They're lying to you. Fauci lies. Everybody lies. And who followed him? Like this, the right, and I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent. I hate and love both sides at a lot of different times here. But every single Republican followed him. And every single Democrat said, let's follow the science. That's why I blame him right there, because at least using that bully pulpit, had he led for a change, thinking about the entirety of society, then maybe we wouldn't be here today. Maybe we would.
I got to tell you, I think the guy, you can hate Trump. I think he deserves a Nobel Prize for pushing Operation Warp Speed. It was an economic stroke of absolute.
He actually didn't push it. That was a plan of the CDC and the NIH, because they were the ones who pushed it, and they wanted it. Trump just took responsibility for it. He took the fame.
He had to prepay for it. And so he did. And he prepaid for all those millions of doses, which forced the issue. I think that, again, I think there's credit that goes all the way around here.
Okay.
And I think there's blame
Fair.
that goes all the way around here. And so I don't want to point fingers at any one person. I think you make a lot of cases. All right. So the question is, where do we stand now? With the military? Yes, I totally agree. We have to have preparedness. Look, one of the things I'm really shocked, I'm surprised in a lot of ways that other nation states haven't taken the opportunity, most notably rogue states like Iran and China. I'm surprised China hasn't moved on Taiwan. I'm really surprised that Iran hasn't moved on the U.S. military in the Gulf. They have, some small stuff. But Ken, you watch this, taking advantage of this, this pandemic. I expected early on, especially when we were in the throes of it, to see that take place. It didn't take place. It was like some weird,
good point.
Weird, episode of The Last Ship. It didn't happen, which surprised me a lot. And I think we have to have preparedness here because in my world, the Chinese are responsible for this. In my world, I think they ought to pay a steep price, up to and including militarily. And so, but that's where I fall.
So wait, most importantly, so you and I were the two guys who liked the show Last Ship.
I liked it.
Me too. I love that show. I'm sorry.
Sooner or later, I knew we were going to find the only two guys who watched it at the end. Very nice.
I liked it.
It was a really good show, and now we're living it.
It's a good point, though, because, and that comes down to my point again about the military. And I come from a military family. My father proudly served for a lot of years, and a number of my family has as well. But the preparedness, John, that you brought up is frightening if you think about it, because if you're a foreign power looking to take advantage, what do? You wait until your enemy is at its weakest. So if you have COVID-19 ravaging through the military, then all of a sudden you got fewer men and women who are there to protect certain points of the United States, and that's part of this whole protect the country, be here for freedom. So in my world, yes, you do have to take it. I agree with the Pentagon, but then again, I take it the next step. If you say absolutely not, I won't take it, fine. I'm going to wipe my hands of you. Dishonorable discharge, and by the way, your pension goes with you. You put that on the line, and all of a sudden you're going to find people lining up and go, here, light me up. Matter of fact, give me as many as you can. Because sometimes we have to force this on people. And that's the shocking thing, guys, that we're forcing the ability to stay healthy and keep this country from falling into a deeper pandemic than ever before. We got to force it on people. I had somebody on Facebook the other day say, if you give me that new Ford F-150, I'll be happy to take it. Holy crap. And that's what people are thinking right now. That's the problem we have.
Well, but in the military, what happened to that phrase, your soul may belong to God, but your ass belongs to Uncle Sam? It's like, just do it. If you can make me march, if you can make me cut my hair, if you can make me do all these other things, just make me get a shot.
And they get vaccinated beforehand. When you join the military, you undergo a series of medical examinations, and you are vaccinated from certain ailments.
But if before they go to Iraq, before they went to Afghanistan, they had to take a series of vaccinations.
Yes.
One more isn't a different. Your ass, your soul may belong to God, but your ass belongs to Uncle Sam. And why are we waiting until mid-September? Just do it.
Well, the problem with it is, too, that you have with members of the military is there like a number of people in public right now who say that the vaccination doesn't work. It's only the flu. It's only going to affect 1% of the people. My children are fine. I've got antibodies. Bill Gates has got a little bug inside of it right now that's going to make sure that it follows me for the rest of my life. You have those people, and you have people in the military who believe that as well. Look, we have people in the military we're uncovering thanks to January the 6th who were part of the attempted insurrection against the United States, and they're members of the current military and law enforcement. So it's not as if just because you join the military, all of a sudden you become an entirely different person. They still are themselves. And I think that's the problem. But
your job is to follow orders, and right now, just order them to take the shot. And if they don't, then bye-bye.
I agree completely. And I don't see any, look, I don't see any problem with police departments saying you have to take a shot or you're out. Hospitals saying the same thing or you're out. And you've got that started in Houston, I believe, with a couple of hospitals there, which they're still fighting. I have no problem, and I also have no problem with a privately held business, whether it's Apple or Microsoft or a local car dealership, saying that if you don't get the vaccination, you can't come to work. Boy, you're going to open up the lawsuits like crazy, but guys, I don't care.
No. I think
I
you're on fine footing here. But it does bring up that other point that I think we probably need to discuss here. because there is a line that I refuse to cross. Okay. I am not about to show anybody my vaccine card unless I have to do it for a governmental reason like getting a passport. Aside from that, you're not going to see it. And I'm not going to show it to you. I don't care who you are.
What about if a restaurant says you have to show it to come into my restaurant?
Papers, please. That is not going to happen, Ed.
Okay, but wait a minute. It's not your papers, John.
No, it is my papers.
It's not. Come on.
Not about, yeah, because that is a can of worms that you don't want to open here. I think that is a legal can of worms, a constitutional can of worms. It really smacks of tyrannical, government here. I mean, this is interference in people's lives that I think is really bad. Ed, I think it is absolutely awful.
I see no problem. If I go to a restaurant and somebody says to me, I'd like to see your proof of vaccination, here you go. Here, it's on my phone. I'll show it to you.
What about to go to a football game? I mean, look, the SoFi Stadium here in LA opens up on Saturday. Rams Chargers. LA County is debating an indoor, mask mandate and a vaccination mandate. Mm-hmm. For me to get in, if they do that, I'm going to have to show my card. I got to prove somehow. I can't show my arm.
That falls under personal. That falls under, again, that's sort of like my stance on the vaccine. If they ask you to do it and you choose to do it, that is a personal decision of yours. To mandate the vaccine card for certain things. Look, you have people now who are saying that in order to vote, you have to produce your vaccine card. Okay, and they're using the same logic. They're using the exact same logic. It becomes a poll tax.
Where?
Yeah, I haven't seen that where they're asking for a vaccine card. They want identification, which I have no problem having.
Oh, no, now they're saying, no, you can't show up at the polls unless you have a vaccine card. I mean,
where?
It hasn't. Okay, I'd have to dig up the story. I'll dig up the story if you want. I mean, there's a political person who said that they want to put forth a bill in the U.S. Congress that says that you have to show up. So again, this is what I'm saying. I get.
Well, if we just had the remote voting like a lot of people want and works these days, although some people say that it's illegal and it's rife with graft, if we only had that, then we could stop that too. That's another.
Well, I just got my text. I'm getting my ballot for the recall. It will be to my house in 6 or 7 days. I'll vote however I vote in the recall for Newsom in California. You can vote from home or a million other places. I mean, look, we show our passports at the airport to travel to Canada, to other places.
That's a foreign country. That's different.
So are you okay showing your card of Canada? If you want to go to Canada, and they say you got to prove it?
Do I have to show my passport to get on a plane to LA? Is that what you're asking me here?
No, I'm asking you.
I think he's talking about another country. If another country says you have to show vaccination.
Well, that's another country. That's not the United States.
But what's the difference between them and Bob's Restaurant? Like, if you open a restaurant and you want people to be vaccinated, how are you going to verify? We certainly know we can't trust them.
Well, I mean, again, if it's voluntary, that's one thing. If it's if it's mandated, that's a different issue. In terms of getting a driver's license, in terms of being able to, what we not consider more or less non-voluntary, things of that nature. You can't get married unless you produce a vaccination card. Oh, come on.
See, I guess here's the difference. If I'm going in and if somebody asks me for it, I'm not offended. I'll show it to them. I think that restaurants and theaters and places like that should mandate that you must wear a mask before you come into the building. But then again, if you go into a restaurant, you're going to take the mask off anyway. But at least you're trying to stop some sort of a spread throughout the building.
We split. I don't care if shouldn't have to. A business should not have to. If they choose not to have masks, they choose not to have masks. If they choose not to ask for vaccine. Again, this is a business issue. It's a private issue. If they want to have anybody comes, anybody goes. It's not.
But they should be allowed to do it, though, right?
Yes.
I mean, okay, they should be allowed to do it. If you want to see my card, okay.
You can't say that a business has to have a mask mandate.
No, but
that's I don't like mask mandates either.
See, I do. In some places, I don't mind it because I've seen too many friends of mine who've died.
That we push in this country sometimes under this stuff because I can see where the abuses happen that are really bad. I mean, it just really bothers me on a civil liberty issue. So
what about shirt mandates or shoe mandates? I mean, how many places do you go every day that's no shoes, no shirt, no service?
Yeah, but I could also go to a swim up bar in my swim trunks at Menley Bay. So I mean, it just depends on the business. I mean, there's no, as long as it's not mandated by the government that you have to have shoes and shirts. I mean, again, if a business says it.
Well, but let's look at the other thing, John. If you don't wear shoes and shirt, there's not a chance that you might infect somebody and they die.
Well, I don't know
If
what
they
you've been walking in, so it
If
could
they
be.
haven't gotten the vaccine yet, Ed, and they get it and die, you're an idiot. And that's not my fault. I don't care.
I get that, but the unfortunate thing is that people who don't get vaccinated and don't follow masks and don't follow some social distancing, there's a chance that they can catch the Delta variant and they can spread it. We already have, and again, I speak from a medical community sense. We have beds in this country right now that are overflowing. We have, again, there's not enough PPE, there's not enough beds, there's not
certain
enough
places,
medical professionals
you
to
know,
handle
I
it.
mean,
And the
yeah,
reason
right.
they're there is because people don't give a shit.
Well, and again, there's certain segments of the population that, for various and sundry reasons, have chosen that, or have thought that the vaccine, whether it was for religious reasons, mostly some political reasons on the right, and a lot of African Americans.
Yeah, I think the religious reasons are absolute bullshit. I'm sorry. I just think the religious reasons are a
That's
dodge.
fine. I mean, that's okay. Then, take that up with God.
Well, she and I talk all the time. So,
and there is a large portion of the African American community, because of what happened with the Tuskegee things, that doesn't take it. And we risk running on a civil liberties thing, setting African Americans back from being able to go to restaurants and being able to go to movies and being able to, what if stores demand, a vaccine card? Ken, I think we have to really think about, well, first off, number one, I think we all agree on one thing. The FDA has to get past the emergency use authorization, and they have to say this is fine.
They're dragging their feet.
So that nobody can use that anymore. That is not it's an experimental vaccine. Let's stop with that. Do it. You want to talk about doing something today? Do that.
Yeah, but look, you bring up communities of color. I don't want them to take the vaccine so they can go shopping. I want them to take the vaccine so they live. And we need to, do a way better job. I mean, local government, local politicians of all colors, all political bents, need to do a way better job of getting into those communities and getting them educated and helping get them vaccinated. That's a real problem.
I do want to point out, though, that I have talked to friends of mine who are African American, who are of different cultures, and who have told me that, this is a quote from one of them, it's absolute nonsense for people who are black, white, blue, green, or whatever to not trust the vaccine. He said, black people need to, and this was, again, I'm going to paraphrase now because I don't have it recorded in front of me, but he said, black people need to get past that. That was a dangerous time in our society where indeed black people were used as experiments by a lot of people who just thought that they weren't even humans. But this is 2021, and people need to get over that because that was decades, generations ago. So they need to, and again, but I fired back. I said, that's still their decision. You can't force it. He said, I absolutely know that, but I'm out here every single day trying to change the minds of the black communities I know to tell them, take the vaccine. We're not experimenting on you. It's the same stuff that we're giving everybody. He said it's difficult, but he says people need to get over it, and that's part of the whole politicalization that we have of this, which is people are saying, I can't take it because it's wrong, it's experimental, it doesn't work, it's going to hurt me, it's going to make me sick, which is all just nonsense. Completely.
Listen, I'm not in Atlanta, but Stacey Abrams did a very good job of getting hundreds of thousands of people of color to vote for the last election. Is she doing the same thing in Georgia now, educating, rural citizens and people of color to get a vaccine? Because as much effort as she put into the election effort, I hope she's doing the same. I hope sports personalities are doing the same. I hope actors are doing the same. I hope politicians are doing the same. And unfortunately, I don't think they are. And they're letting their community down.
A lot of athletes are not vaccinated. So, no, I mean, again, I can't speak for the, even though I'm in, the most powerful African-American city in the world, I can't speak to, that community because, for obvious reasons. But I understand, talking to a number of my friends. Where I work, and Ken, this, is the urban headquarters for Odyssey. And so the majority of my coworkers are black. And so I talk to them about these issues, quite frequently. And they are, I understand their trepidation. I really do. I understand why they have laws. And so I give people a wide berth here. When we're talking about putting something in your body, what's the next thing that comes along? Oh, now you got to have a shot for this or a shot for that. And again, it goes back to what we said originally, which is there's personal choice involved. There's, corporate choice. There's, governmental entity choice. And there is the fact that we sit here today within what is still considered an experimental drug that prohibits us from moving forward with this.
See, but I will just say that your personal choice stops when what happens and what you do not do affects the lives, the health, and the well-being of others. That's
well,
what
and
stops.
the flu kills people too, Ed. I mean,
No, you're
that's
right.
fair.
You're right, but there is a vaccine for the flu that works.
That people don't have to take, and most don't.
Well, but most don't, and if they don't, that's part of the problem we have here. There are people going, "This is just like the flu." It's not. This is not the flu. This is
It's
this is
a
much worse
form of the flu, right?
This is not this is not the flu.
Well, it's a virus, but it's not the flu. Right. It's not Ebola, but it's not the flu.
And again, none of us are doctors, but this is not the common cold, and it's not the flu.
No,
but if this were Ebola, where it's got a 75% or 80% mortality rate, I bet this would be different. Because it isn't such a, look, it isn't killing 75% of the people. It's killing what? 1%, 2%, 3%. That's part of that, mission of education and some of the bad messaging.
Which is what the knuckleheads fall back on. They go, "Oh, look, it's only killing 1% of the people." How many? I don't have the number in front of me right now. 650,000 dead in America.
Something like that.
And what people don't understand is when you have the flu, 99.999 times out of 100, 1,000, when you get the whatever you want to call it, when you get the flu, it's over, it's done, you walk away. COVID-19 in all its variants lasts. They're talking now about a virus that will last decades for people, that will scar their lungs, that will make them sick for the rest of their lives. But nobody wants to talk about that. I've seen that. I got a friend of mine who got COVID, one of the first ones who got it. She has never recovered. She can't exercise. This was an athlete. She can no longer take part in her sport. She can't run. She can't bicycle. She has to have oxygen in her house. And she had it, and she was hospitalized for about 7 days. 7 days hospitalized with the original COVID. Her life has changed forever. And I don't think people look at that.
I had the flu in January. It kicked my ass, but I knew I wasn't going to kill my wife or my friends who were exposed to me for the day or two when I didn't realize I had the flu. But I knew I was getting sick. With COVID, I know I could kill somebody. And it's irresponsible of me, regardless of personal choice, to know that I have the potential to kill you without me knowing it.
I'm going to leave it there, and let's go ahead and move on because we have covered this well. But let's get to the next point here because everybody gets a chance to go ahead and drop their own ideas that are here and what sits on your mind. Mr. Fricke, we call this the mic drop section of the show, so I'm going to go ahead and come to you first. Absolutely anything, although I have a feeling it may involve college football, which is good. Go right ahead. You drop that college football in here, young man. But this is your shot, John. Go for it.
Well, it's interesting. I've never seen what's going to happen with college football. It's not college football. It's professional football, right? I mean, it's football where we have athletes who are being paid. One of the things that I did not expect in the new name, image, and likeness was I thought, well, what we're going to get is we're going to get these really high-paid quarterbacks who roll into practice in a Ferrari and an offensive lineman who's coming in on a trike or something, and there's going to be a problem inside the locker room because certain guys are going to get paid and female athletes are going to be left out. And woe is me. I missed the whole, it's a free marketplace. You know who's going to get paid? Those two sisters, the twin basketball players, Fresno State, because they have IG accounts and TikToks and everything that they're going to turn that into gold now because they got 18 gazillion followers and they're going to make a minute money and bully on them too for being able to do that. The people who are going to make money in the name, image, and likeness business of college athletics are not going to be pushing and pimping some kind of random iced tea or something. They're people who are going to be enterprising, who are going to be able to sell themselves in a lot of ways, including certainly virally on TikTok and Instagram and social media. That's one way they're going to do it. And in other ways, they're going to make sure they're going to start acting, for example. And they're going to start doing other things that are going to make them a whole boatload of money, not the least of which is that they're going to find that they are able to be their own brand. And so now, as a result, I'm all in favor of this. I have been for a long time. It's going to be the Wild West for a little while, but it'll settle down. And I'm thrilled that I think that the new version of college football, the new version of college athletics is going to be somewhat stable, even though it's chaotic right now with expansion, with playoffs and things of that nature, and everybody's trying to figure out where we're going to head with this. In 3 to 5 years, it'll all settle down, and I think we'll be in a much better position as sports fans to know what's going to happen going forward. I like it. I really do.
Ken Charles, your take?
You don't think the big name guys are going to make way more money than the offensive linemen, just like they do in the NFL?
I think these women are going to make so much more money on TikTok than the quarterback of the team. It's not funny.
That'll be interesting to see.
And to be honest, I don't have a problem with that because in every form of life, look, if we're going to talk, all three of us here have done radio, TV, we've all been in the media. Guess what? There are people who do certain shifts who make more money than the other folks. There are certain people who make more money. Why? They're more talented. They're better at their job. What is it?
Thing.
Yeah.
It's this thing, Ken. It's communication.
Well, but it's this now.
It's blogs. It's TikTok. I mean, this is where, you want to hire me, Ken, to do a commercial for you. And my rate. Okay, I'm going to say, okay, your sales guy comes to me. I'm going to say, okay, here's my rate for a weekly on an annual thing for, selling what I sell, zero res, racetrack, whatever I sell, American financing. Now, if you say to me, I can go ahead and independent of my contract, be able to do this kind of a podcast, which I can't because I'm under contract to Odyssey, and try and monetize that, I might be able to make twice, 10, 100 times more. If I have enough followers on my Twitter, if I can matriculate those over to another format. So I think the free market will determine, and those enterprising young men and women who want to be able to make money in this environment are going to do so. And I think that's where the free market of the American economy is going to flourish. And those are the ones who are going to have the most success.
I think that would behoove. Go ahead, Ken.
I was just going to say, but, look, they're fixing a problem. And the problem is that college athletics and college athletes have been abused for a long, long time. Their names and their likeness and their performance have been used for somebody else to make a ton of money, but not them. My concern with this is not the people who are going to make the money, but the people who don't make the money are still screwed because they're not going to have enough, look, a scholarship pays for room, board, books, but not for food, not for a Saturday night, not for gas for your car, not for insurance. So the haves will have, and the have-nots will still have not, and college athletics still hasn't solved that problem for
they have solved that because they're going to allow the schools to pay them a stipend now. That is part of this agreement in NIL is that you can get a monthly stipend from the school in order to do that. But look, I mean, you weigh it against what you want. Not everybody. Is it a 2-tiered system, a 3-tiered system, 4-tiered? Well, yeah, but then again,
it's a 20 or 30-tiered system. It really is.
I mean, it always has been. I mean, there have been non-scholarship sports for forever.
But wait a minute, I'm going to try and solve that for you here now, because now you have, and Ken's point is well taken, because there might be, by the time this all shakes out, maybe 10% of the athletes, maybe less, maybe 5% of the athletes that are really going to make a killing, maybe less, maybe 2%. You have universities and major college athletic programs from the conferences on down to the schools that are making billions of dollars, coaches that are making hundreds, tens of millions of dollars. John, shouldn't that money, first and foremost, before the athletes are going out selling themselves, shouldn't that money then, and you call it a stipend, you and I both know it's $1.95 on average here, shouldn't that money filter down to the athletes? Because if you're going to pay them instead of this, because we have kids who are trying desperately to survive when the universities and the coaches are making millions. That money needs to get to the athletes, and it never does. And the one argument I don't want to hear is, well, they give them training tables, well, they give them transportation, well, they give them room and board. Oh, come on, that's nonsense, because it's been amortized over dozens of years. So shouldn't we take the money first that the universities are making and get that to the students?
Again,
equally?
That's happening now. There is an allotment of money that the understand something, guys. The NCAA is no longer in charge. The NCAA is about to go bye-bye.
They haven't been for a while, but you're right.
Yeah, and so there's going to be a new sheriff in charge, and it will be a coffee clutch, which is a big $5 word, between the super conferences and the Power Five, and all these schools are going to get together and they're going to form their own governing body. And as part of that, they are going to allow players and athletes to get a monthly stipend above tuition, books, all of your expenses. You're going to be able to get $1,500 a month, for example, if you're at a major university, above and beyond. So there is money on a monthly basis, and maybe a halfway decent sum of money in today's dollars. So that's going to happen. Second to that is, again, you're going to find, and this is why it'll take 3 to 5 years to kind of work out, these boosters, they're going to start paying all sorts of money for these 5-star recruits, and there's going to be a bidding war for a number of athletes. Already is. What is Arch Manning going to create when he goes to pick a college? Because some college is going to come to him. You're going to have a booster come to Archie, the grandfather, right, and to Cooper, the father, and they're going to say, all right, if you go to XYZ University, I'll pay you $5 million. And that's going to happen, Ed.
So we're talking more illegal payments, then. We're talking more booster payments and more money under the table.
Anymore. That's the point.
I know, but that's the point. Look, all of a sudden, somebody's calling. Ken, that's somebody calling saying, pay me my money. That's the way it works in media. But, I mean, that's the point. I get it. But at the same time, there's never enough money that comes down from the profit machine of the colleges and the conferences that gets to the students. And if they did that, and I'll drop you another one, John. You and I have talked about this. My God, how many hundreds of times over the years about illegal boosters and the money that gets shoveled at these kids? Hey, start putting these people in jail. Come up with something else. Come up with a punishment factor for the schools. Well, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It's not. You can't just go over and hand somebody $20. It never was.
It's 100% legal. They just made it legal. I get it as a booster.
You have to sign contracts, John. Under the NIL, you have to sign contracts for how you're getting your money.
And high school players are going to start signing NIL contracts, and that will carry over to the university.
We can't stop that, but unfortunately, you can't hand somebody $10,000 under the table and say, "Here."
If I pay you $100,000 when you're in high school, with the understanding that I'll continue that $100,000 payment if you go to XYZ University, okay?
See, I'm not a lawyer. I got to look into that and see if that's legal.
No, that's
I'm still not sure it is.
Yeah, that's actually the way it works, Ed.
No, that's the way it's worked for dozens of years, and it's always been under the table, and it's always been against NCAA rules. And last I checked, I think it still is against NCAA rules.
There's no NCAA. Don't worry.
No, there is still an NCAA, John. They haven't folded yet.
They have no power. They got nothing. They are a pointless organization that runs a couple of postseason events. That's all they are.
Which they always have been, but that's another story. They've always been powerless and pointless. I've often said that between the NCAA, the International Olympic Committee, and FIFA, go ahead and try and find me which organization is the greater graft-filled sports organization in the world and the biggest set of cheats.
Oh, it's the IOC.
Well,
no, actually, guys, that's the wrong answer. It's the WBA and the WBC and the World Boxing Council. And
they don't make as much money as they used to.
Yeah, it was. Probably not now.
Go over to UFC and all the money that they make in there, too. That's another issue that we could open up. Mr. Charles, I'm going to go ahead and drop this to you then, because it is now your turn to go ahead and mic drop this, if you will, because Ken Charles, you're on the clock. Go.
All right, this isn't controversial. I was a wuss and didn't do this because I had an opportunity to do this. So I want to tell this story because I want to say goodbye to my friend Dusty Hill from ZZ Top, who passed away a little over 2 weeks ago. Dusty Hill is one of the coolest, nicest, most human people at that level I've ever met in my life. And I was privileged to know him and privileged to get to know him because he liked my radio station in Houston. But I want to tell this one story because it will tell you everything you need to know about Dusty Hill that you've probably never heard of before. So I had the opportunity when the Astros were in their first World Series in 2005. I took Dusty as my guest to the World Series, Game 4, when they got swept by the Chicago White Sox. We were in the Astros suite. And so there I am with Dusty Hill. And Dusty, by the way, and one of our friends, Chris Baker, who was going to take Dust, they actually bought tickets and were going to sit in the stands. So here's Dusty Hill, giant rock star, going to sit in the stands. I was like, you can't do that. You're Dusty Hill. You cannot sit in the middle of 20,000 people on the left field side of Minute Maid Park. So I said, I'm going to call the Astros. I'm going to get us tickets. We're going to be in their suite. So we go up and we're all together hanging out in the Astros suite, Game 4, World Series. There weren't a lot of people there, but the one guest that was there that was from the Astros was the guy who played Mike Delfino in the Desperate Housewives show. So we're sitting having a good time. I get up, I start talking to him because my wife really liked the show. And Dusty gets up, grabs something to eat, comes up behind me, and I feel this presence behind me. Now I'm having just an informal conversation with an actor, and it's Dusty. And I turn to my left, and there's Dusty, and he goes, "Introduce me." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Introduce me." I was like, to him, whatever the heck his name is, and I can't remember his real name. It's Mike Delfino from Desperate Housewives. He goes, "Yeah, it's Chuck. That's his wife. favorite show. I was like, dude, you're Dusty Hill, long beard, bass player, rock star. You don't, he goes, introduce me. He wouldn't butt in, and he was like shy. So I was like, Mike Delfino guy, Dusty Hill. Dusty Hill from ZZ Type, Mike Delfino guy. And I stepped back, and they had just a normal conversation. But that was the kind of guy Dusty Hill was. You think rock star, you think big entertainment guy. No, Dusty was a normal human being. Dusty was one of the nicest, most human beings I've ever met. The world has lost not only a great bass player and great musician, but a great person. So, Dusty, I wanted to share that tribute with you. Goodbye. You will be missed by millions.
Excellent story. And I have to tell you that when Dusty Hill, when I heard he passed away, I was crushed because I've been a ZZ Top fan. It was one of the first concerts I ever saw, which was at the Hollywood Sportatorium, which has been long gone. What a hole. One of the worst places. It was a barn. And ZZ Top comes out on stage. First of all, the stage. The stage is set. It has a barn in the background. It has a rotating windmill here. And it has two monstrous, look like tractor trailer sides, just the trailers sitting on the side of the stage. They come out. It's well lit. It's a show. And at one point during the show, I can't remember the song at this point. It might have been DeGuayo, where all of a sudden the risers come up and there's two steers that are in the trailers, that the tops are cut off, and the steers come up, and you hear the microphones, and it's obviously was probably piped in, right, and I'm going, this is rock and roll heaven. And I'm crushed because I was hoping to see them on their return tour that they were going to have, thanks to COVID stopping them. This is something else, I guess, which it goes way off the track, but it's perfect for what you're saying. I can't pay stupid money to go see old aging rockers anymore.
No.
I said this on a previous show. The Rolling Stones are coming out with their new act and their new tour, 15-city tour. Charlie Watts is 80?
He's not even with them.
He's not even with him. He can't because he can't, well, that's just it. He can't play with them because he's too old. It looks like he'll never play with the Stones again. I saw the Stones play at Fenway Park. That's the last concert that I'll see the Stones play because I want to remember that. I don't want to remember a bunch of guys walking around a stage who might accidentally jump 3 feet in the air and break 2 hips.
Yeah, I saw him in the Summit for free. I got lucky and got front row tickets because I worked for a radio station in 2006. I had an opportunity in like 76 to see them for $5 at the Lakeland Civic Center in Florida and didn't do it. But I'm going to tell you something. I'm not going to pay $1,500 to see them at SoFi Stadium in October as 80-year-old geriatrics.
What about you, John?
Well, the one thing I would say is that I had never seen – I grew up a gigantic Chicago fan. And for the 500 concerts I've seen in my life, for whatever reason, Chicago wasn't one of them. And so I had a chance 2 years ago, right before COVID, to go see them at an amphitheater here in Atlanta. I am thrilled that I did. And now I realize I'm never going to see Prince. I'm never going to see certain acts. I'm never going to see Tom Petty. I never saw him, never will see him. So I think there's something to be said for, even if you're an 80-year-old geriatric, and Chicago was old, Brian Lamb was old. I mean, they were all old, but they still rocked. If you're a fan and you have an opportunity to be witness, it's what I always tell these young fans, sports fans out there. If you have an opportunity to go see LeBron James play basketball, or if you have a chance to go see Mike Trout play baseball, or if you have a chance to go see Tom Brady play football, and you don't do it, we are fortunate as sports fans, Ed, you and I. I can tell you, I saw Roberto Clemente play baseball at Wrigley Field in 1968, and so you can't take that away from me. And so if you have a chance to be witness to something, don't just watch it on television.
But for $1,500, no, listen, I agree with you.
No. There's a limit. I understand.
There's a limit here.
Yeah, and it's the money that I'm saying. It's like, look, I saw Bob Dylan a couple of times, and the first time I saw him was in 1996, and the only reason I went was because I wanted to see Bob Dylan before he died. And I'm really glad I saw Dylan because he's a way better guitarist than I ever thought he was. I saw him 3 more times after that. And I agree with you. If you could see LeBron James, if you could see the great, if I could see Lionel Messi play soccer, I would pay to go see Lionel Messi.
Which,
But
by
would
the
I
way,
pay
you
$1,500?
will be able to in a couple of years because that 2-year deal with PSG, last deal in Europe, he's coming here.
But
Maybe
would
that's
I
it. If
pay
you haven't seen the
$1,500?
show, and if it's a legendary act, and you've never seen them before, I think that changes. But the fact that I've seen the Stones, I saw
Right.
Tom Petty, I got to see ZZ Top.
Well, no, that's different.
And
I mean, that's
yeah.
entirely different.
The fact
I
that the
get
Spurs
that.
are paying
But to
charging
come back, but to Ken's
$100.
point, to come back and have to pay in some of these cases $800,
Okay, well, that's the
$1,500,
point I'm saying.
$2,000 a
Nissan
ticket. No.
Nissan Stadium in Nashville for October the 9th, $98. Rolling Stones, $98.
For nosebleeds in the up. I mean, look.
Well,
You know,
that doesn't matter. That's irrelevant to me. I mean, are you in the building?
I'm a snob. I want to
Yeah,
see
but you're
them.
a snob,
You're
Ken.
a
You've been
snob.
working for radio stations your whole life. You get those management tickets to
You're a
sit right up there in the
snob.
pit
You're a
with
snob.
everybody
Don't be
else.
that guy.
Listen, I'm willing to pay for it, but I got to tell you, the greatest rock and roll band in America or in the world is what they call the Rolling Stones. Rock and roll is not charging somebody $1,500 to see you.
I have to agree with you completely. I agree with you about the Stones. I'd love to see them, but at $1,500, I'm watching videos. And I'm going to turn that music up and I'm going to sit back with cocktails and I'm going to enjoy it instead of having to go through everything that you have to go through to go to a concert. That's another story which we could talk about for a long time. Before we go, I want to, because we're all media professionals here, I want to bring something up that's happened recently in the news, and I think it bears well. Well, no, you what? Stop, Fricky. Stop, Fricky. You and I have been together now for what? 40.
No, you just said professionals. That's
you and I have known each other 41 years. I want you to think about that for a second. No, was it 31 years? 31 years we've known each other.
31 years.
You and I. Going back to SNN, which should still be on the air today, another story altogether. But
you're not bitter.
No, we're not bitter at all. I'm bitter with some
No.
people, but that's another story. It should be on the air today because we were the best. We and the National should still be alive. That's another story.
I love the National.
The National was a brilliant. Frank DeFord, what an amazing man. Okay, let me hit this because this has got a little media attention to it, and I want us to talk about this. In Denver, Colorado, the news made that a member of the Miami Marlins comes to bat. Somebody is heard saying something in a sparse stadium where there's not many people there and the Rockies are winning the game. So you can hear in a lot of the ballparks these days when people are yelling, you can now hear them because with only 4,000 or 5,000 people, it echoes throughout the stadium. So somebody yells out and all of a sudden it's like this. The media's on it, the TV's on it, the radio's on it, Twitter's on it, Facebook is on it. This was the first report of what happened that came out from KMGH Channel 7 in Denver, Colorado.
The Rockies say they're investigating an incident involving a fan yelling a racial slur.
It was all caught on microphone during the live broadcast while the team was playing the Miami Marlins at Coors Field. This was during the 9th inning. You could hear the fan shout the word twice while Marlins center fielder Lewis Brinson was at bat. A spokesman for the Marlins told the Associated Press neither Lewis or any other Marlins players heard what was shouted.
The Rockies put out a statement nearly 3 hours after the incident. The team says they have zero tolerance for any form of racism. The Rockies say the person responsible was not identified before the end of the game, but the team says, quote, any kind of racist behavior would ban a person from Coors Field. The union representing players says in a statement, we have to continue to work together to ensure that racism is never tolerated on or off the field. Major League Baseball has not issued a statement, only retweeting the statement from the Rockies.
The knee-jerk happens where everybody says, and you heard the report of the anchor there saying it was said. There was nothing there that said the word alleged or supposedly, or we heard it was that this word was said, and everybody is saying at that point, we have to find the fan, we have to make sure that he or she never comes to a game again. And just for a little context, what people may not know, in Denver, the Rockies mascot is named Dinger, D-I-N-G-E-R. It is a dinosaur, if you will, a purple dinosaur. So what everybody claims they heard was that word, in essence, with an N on the front of the word. That's what everybody said was being heard throughout the stadium. 6 hours later, this is from KCNC Channel 4 in Denver.
The Colorado Rockies now say a fan was not yelling a racist slur during yesterday's game, but was instead yelling at Dinger. At the top of the 9th, mics picked up what appeared to be the racial slur several times. But the Rockies say the fan was yelling at Dinger, the Rockies mascot. The people sitting in the area reported hearing Dinger and not the slur.
Guys, this is knee-jerk, and this is all part of social media, how it explodes and how an incident gets blown out of proportion. And I'm going to take the media to task. And what I always like to say, there's a difference between legitimate press and clickbait media. So I'm going to take the supposed legitimate press to task for this in Denver, for jumping on this story as if it was real, it happened, it's a terrible thing, we got to find this person. Nobody knew. You back off a little bit. That's what I was taught in news by a guy named Chuck Dent at WIOD Radio a billion years ago, who said you wait, you take a little patience, and you make sure your facts are straight. People aren't checking to see if facts are straight anymore, especially when it comes down to sexism and racism in our society right now. Hey, Ken, from a news director's standpoint, you got to back off a little bit. You got to make sure your facts are straight, and you got to use the word alleged, maybe, we don't know, instead of making this to be, this is what happened. Yes?
Well, was that written well? No. But they did use a key word that was really important. And look, there is some credit that goes to the Rockies organization and Major League Baseball that didn't make a comment on it when they used the word investigate. As opposed to just saying it happened, they did the right thing. They talked to the fans around that area. They talked to the people and found out it wasn't. And you know what? They came out and then said, here's exactly what happened. The player has since come out and said, that's what I thought I heard. If he didn't say it, then, he gave a version of apology, and all of the right things happened. Could that have report had been a little bit more clear that it was alleged? Absolutely. But, you got to give some credit to Major League Baseball and the Rockies organization, because they did the right thing.
See, and I'm going to disagree with you there to a point, because I think that the Rockies, and again, and I'll get hammered on this from friends of mine in the Rockies organization, I think at that point, because you don't know what happened, the statement is, we don't know exactly what happened. We are investigating. That's it. Stop. End. You don't go off going, we don't like racism. We want to make sure our fans are happy and healthy. We want to make sure everything's done. No, you stop right there, because then you're adding more fuel to the fire, Ken. Don't you have to cut this off before you know every stitch of fact before you go off on flights of fancy?
Well, I didn't see their whole statement. And if you looked at the graphic they put up, that wasn't the whole statement from the Rockies. So I don't know what the Rockies said before.
But it was too much of a statement. That's my point, I guess.
But, look, I don't know what the Rockies said. But them just showing the part about they're against racism, well, gee, no shit. The Rockies are against racism. We're all against racism. That's the obvious part. The key thing to me was they're investigating. They don't know what happened. They're going to find out. And they did. So
John, you're on the air live in the mornings at 92.9 The Game in Atlanta. You're big on social media as well. And again, social media drives this. And things go from 0 to 100 in a split second, thanks to Twitter and social media. You're kind of the arbiter in that sense, because you're the live guy sitting there. And you're the guy. We've been on the air before when things have happened. And the first lesson that I learned, and I don't know about you, but I think we're on the same path here, is tamp it down. Don't go crazy. Don't go nuts. Let everything sit until you have all the facts.
My years in Los Angeles, I'm a huge fan of Ken Station. I listened to 1070. Sig Alert was my thing. It's LA. It's an LA thing. Yes, Ed, and this is but this isn't new. I mean,
no,
we've seen this in the media even before. Social media, this happened, this happen all the time, unfortunately. And when it does arise, I think the media does need to self-examine, and teams need to self-examine, because there is a boy cried wolf thing that does happen, and society tunes it out. And that's my biggest concern, is that when we do get real incidents, that society tunes it out, because they have been so inundated with this that they just, and that happens.
And I think what it does is it falls down to the professionals sitting behind the mic and at the desk, where the first thing you have to do is say, and again, here's the phrase that I was taught never to be afraid to use: we don't know. I think what happens is a lot of the news anchors, the news hosts, the talk hosts especially, and social media all wants to say immediately that we know.
Ed, Ken knows this. It's the accusation. It's not the, once
Yes.
you make the accusation, that is tantamount to guilt.
Yes.
It is almost tantamount to guilt.
And social media has screwed it up. Look, everybody wants to now beat social media. When did social media become the arbiter of editorial decision-making in America? And that's the biggest problem.
We're into a 3-hour conversation on that one, because what was the recent number I saw? And again, I beg I just went past it. But it was a frightening number to me of the number of people who get all of their news every day. The first thing when they wake up in the morning, they go to Twitter and they go to Facebook and they start reading the news there. And it's got to be something like 20, 30% of America, maybe more. That's not the place you get news. I mean, Twitter's a sewer.
When you wake up, I'm curious. And Ed, you answer this too. Can you go first? When you wake up in the morning, you open up your tablet, your phone. Where do you go first? What's the very first place you go?
Actually, the first place I go is I look at all of the push messages that I've gotten from the last time I look at it. So I'm seeing the Washington Post, the LA Times, my radio station, other Odyssey stations, USA Today, Fox News. That's the first place I look to see what's broken. Second place I go is I absolutely go to Twitter. But if you look at what I'm following on Twitter versus the 20-year-old that's in that survey that's getting their news from Twitter, I guarantee you we're looking at way different things. And I'm smart enough to know that what I look at, what's news and what's not. I'm not sure the average person, and I don't mean to demean anybody, but a 20-year-old looking on Twitter isn't following the LA Times, KNX, the Washington Post, WSB, or any of the other credible news sources. They're looking at their friends, and they're looking at, Reddit, and they're looking at all these other crazy, sources that aren't credible news sources.
And for me, I go to the New York Times first, then the Washington Post, then the LA Times, and I have an app on my phone called Smart News, which I think is a brilliant app, as a matter of fact, where I'm able to set what I want to look for. And Smart News is the only app I've found that actually hits left, right, indifferent. They do all the news, and it focuses on what I want to look at. I never go to Twitter to look for my news. And then I'll go to Facebook and I'll see what people are saying, and I'll just kind of, write a few things out. But I go to legitimate sources. And it's funny, too, because I live in South Florida, but when I walk the dogs in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, I have here it is, it's the plug. Ken did not pay me for this, in case you're wondering. As a matter of fact, I received no remuneration. I'm on my phone, I go to Odyssey, because I can listen to WCBS News Radio 880 in New York, which to me is like manna from heaven. And it's because I grew up in New York City. And I get news there that is New York focused, but I still get national news and things that are interesting for the rest of the country. So, John, I think the answer to your question is we're old.
No, but John, listen, John is right. And some of it is garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
And while I go to Twitter, I have a very diverse, list of things I look for in Twitter. And I'll scroll just to see what all of those credible news organizations are doing, not Bob from Pacoima.
Yeah, well, I usually wake up, first thing, of course, fans only, that's a given. And then after that, I go to, that went right over your heads.
It's sitting right there, but I just thought I'd let it go. Look good comedy, you're not supposed to react.
Go to Twitter first. But the key with Twitter, the key to using Twitter properly, as we all know, is that you have to set your settings. And so my settings are set for Atlanta sports, and whatever is popping in Atlanta sports or trending in Atlanta sports, because I'll see those names. What are the trending names? They're like, well, why is this morning, why is Calvin Ridley trending? Why is the coach at Atlanta United trending? What's going on? And I just pop into those, make sure nobody died, basically. And and then I just go through my list of, you would understand, ESPN, CBS Sports, things of that nature. Though it changes now because I can't use Sports Illustrated. By the way, the new model here about everybody's got to have a paid subscription stuff and paid entry like The Athletic. Yeah, that ain't working for me. I'm sorry, it's not.
Either.
No, that pony left the stall a long time ago.
Yeah,
because if you want to run,
is running into that now.
If you want to run ads, I allow the ads. I don't knock those out. But if you want to hit me with a paywall, sorry, I go someplace else, because 9 chances out of 10 I can read the same story someplace else. I miss The Athletic because their writing is brilliant, and there's some other sites as well, but I don't pay for a lot of the sites because you have ads, and every time I click, you get paid. And that's what it should all be about, because when I watch television in the Nielsen ratings, I'm not paying for CBS. But every time I watch it and the ratings and they look, that's how you get paid. But we're talking about a newspaper industry that screwed this up decades ago, and they're still trying to.
By the way, I got to say to Ken, I'm thrilled. That television is not what it used to be, obviously, but terrestrial radio remains relevant. It remains impactful. It remains, a point of person and contact. And stations like KNX 1070, even for those, these news stations that do such a great service. I started my career at an all news station, WGST in Atlanta. And so I have a fondness for all news radio. Of course, I do sports, and I want fans to come over and listen to me, and they do. Obviously, we do very well here. But I'm glad
that
the all news format is alive and well, especially even if it's only reduced to drive time in certain markets. I'm very happy that it's there because I think it is a national treasure.
Yeah, I'm blessed every day to come to work at KNX and to work with the people I do who really care and are committed. And you know what? We do this because we want to make a difference and a positive difference. And, that's something you can't do every place.
I look for, and that's one of the things that I'm always looking at, why I go to Odyssey and other places, is I get news radio. And between WCBS, WINS, and KNX, because KNX is 3 hours behind, so I'm trying to get the morning news here. And I still like hearing that there's a tie-up underneath the apartments on the Canarsie and Canarsie. That's another thing altogether. But what has me very upset, and unfortunately we're out of time and we could go so long on this, I live in South Florida. We do not have a news talk radio station, a news station in this town. We don't have one.
Well, you did when I worked at IOD. You don't anymore.
Right.
But you did when I was there.
WINZ used to be the all-news station, and I worked there, and it was a brilliant station with brilliant reporters. And WIOD was the one that had, thanks to Chuck Dent and Gretchen Graham, who were the people who taught me, we had top of the hour and bottom of the hour news. Henry Barrow was there, who was a legend in South Florida. And we had real news people. Unfortunately now, we don't have one in South Florida. I don't listen to terrestrial radio in South Florida because there's no news. Now I have to go someplace else to get it, but that's to each his own what they like. Now when I'm in Atlanta, I have to go. I go to 92.9 The Game and I listen to John Fricke. That's where I get that taken.
As you should.
And exactly right. Let's. I can't thank my guests enough, and I want to make sure that everybody knows where to get a hold of him. Now, I mentioned John Fricke, one of my oldest, dearest friends. I love him. You tell Danny I send her a big kiss. Don't forget to listen to him at 92.9 The Game in the mornings in Atlanta. You want to catch him on Facebook? It's John Fricke 92, or just search out John Fricke and you'll find him. Twitter and Instagram, it is at John Fricke. You will find him there. I remind everybody again that if you are in LA or any place, thanks to Odyssey, you can listen to KNX News Radio in Los Angeles, which is indeed one of the best news stations in the country, bar none. Stop everything right there. To get a hold of Ken Charles, you can catch him at Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, at Ken Charles, and you can tell him just what brilliant news that he has. God, we got to go back. I got to go back to doing this. I missed local radio, damn it. It was one of the most fun things in the world I ever did, and WIOD was one of the great places. Gentlemen, I cannot thank you enough. We're going to do this again, and we could go off for hours and hours and hours, but I wish you both health and your family's health as well. Please stay good and stay healthy in all this, and we'll talk real soon.
Take care, John. Thank you, Ed. It's been a blast.
Hang tight, everybody. I'll say goodnight to you in just a second here privately. Now I'll do it publicly. Don't forget, go to welcometothearena.com to see all the shows. Go to podcasts, where you'll find Ed Berliner and Man in the Arena. We're on all the major platforms, including Odyssey, in case you're wondering as well. And you can watch these shows over and over again at our YouTube channel, which is The Man in the Arena. For John Fricke, for Ken Charles, for everybody here, thanks so much for joining us. Make sure you do it again and make sure you pass on the word. And we'd love to have you subscribe and be around as often as you can. I'm Ed Berliner. Till we meet again, rock on, true believers. See you.
You're still here?
Are you not entertained?
It's over.
All right, hey. All right, good job, guys. Let's just not come in tomorrow. Let's just take a day.
Go home.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Go.
That's all, folks.